Hi, welcome to the Wardenburg Family Farm Market Garden. Today I'm going to show you what a garden looks like after a few weeks of neglect. Well, I showed you my garden in the spring when it was all pretty and everything was neat and tidy, and even in the summer gardens look pretty good. But then fall it usually starts not looking so great. This year it's really in bad shape because we went away for a week. I was sick for pretty much part of a week, and it rained for 4 solid days. So the weeds have taken over. Things are overgrown. At the moment it feels a little bit overwhelming. I'll show you how bad it is, and then I'll show you how we climb out of this and how we start getting it ready for winter. All right, the wheelbarrow of weeds we just showed you is actually just from these first 2 rows. So I'm getting that a little bit under control. This is the herbal area and the nursery area, but a lot of the herbs are just, they need cut back, trimmed up. Luckily, I did have time before we left to cut the mint off before it went to seed and seeded everywhere. So I shouldn't have mint everywhere in the garden. That's the plan anyway. But the carrots need picked desperately. And I have carrots going to flower in the first year. They're not supposed to do that, so I don't know if it got cold and then hot and they thought it was winter, but I have carrots going to flower. So I'm not sure what I'll find when I pick those, but I'm gonna try it. And I started some broccoli and cauliflower and cabbage before we left, but I didn't get a chance to cover them. So I know they're getting eaten and the weeds are already overtaking things. And the strawberries need some work. I did these rows before we left. I had them all weeded, runners cut off, and straw down. But as you can see, the weeds, when it rains, it's just unbelievable what weeds do. So these strawberry rows need tidied up. And then my cucumbers have, I don't know what kind of disease they have, but they're not doing so well. My snapdragons are all dead. That just looks like a disaster. So you like my monster? That was supposed to be a beautiful arbor of morning glories and moonflowers. And that is morning glories and moonflowers, but it didn't get a single blossom. No flowers. If that had flowers on, it would be beautiful. Instead, it just looks like a big green monster. So that's all gonna have to somehow be pulled out, ripped out, torn out, and gotten rid of. That's probably a whole day's project right there. Maybe the grandkids would want to do that. We'll see. And these 2 rows of strawberries, I never did get to cut the runners off, pull the weeds, and put straw down. That's on high on the list for me this week. And then another row of cabbage, broccoli, and cauliflower that are a little bit haggard looking. I might be able to spray them and cover them and still get something this fall. I'm not sure. I might have gotten them in too late. But they don't look too good. And there's some other sick looking cucumbers I'm gonna have to tear out. There's a lot of tearing out to do. And then covering the beds with compost and mulch. Doesn't this look delightful? That's my watermelon row, which I did weed to a certain point, but then once the vines get all over the place, you can't really get in and weed because you can't tell where the roots of the vines are. So that has to be completely gutted, taken out. And these are my blueberries I was working on. Do you see them in there anywhere? They're in among the weeds and the flowers and the other stuff. So this area right here is just major get rid of stuff. Now my little elderberries, remember I just stuck sticks in the ground and they grew into elderberry bushes? They're doing great. I actually got some elderberries off of them. But now it's going to soon be time just to take them back to about 2 feet. I'll take every single branch back to about 2 feet off the ground and I'll pull the weeds out from around them. But this row and the berries aren't in terrible shape. I did have time to cut last year's canes out, tie up this year's canes, but I need to go through and probably clip these back a little bit so they're not quite so long and out of control. So they're not in too bad a shape. This part is not totally discouraging. Here's another lovely watermelon row. I think I've come to the realization I'm not going to grow watermelons next year unless I do it in landscape fabric, just because you can't keep up with the weeds. It didn't look this bad before we left for a trip, but it was already getting weedy. But it has just gone crazy. Now this, I'm kind of excited about. The sweet potatoes look good among all the weeds. If the vines are any indication of what nice sweet potatoes we'll get, we should get some good ones. So that crop, I'm excited about. And here's more carrot. First year carrots grown from seed, flowering. Actually, I'm curious what they look like. Should I pull one out and see what it looks like down there? I think I let him go a little too long. What do you think? Oh, that's funny. Okay, if you can picture it in your mind, this was a beautiful row of all different varieties of sunflowers. It was beautiful. Now, as they've gone to seed, I cut them off and give them to the chickens to eat. But at this point now, everything just needs torn out. The next couple weeks in this garden is just going to be tearing things out, putting the mulch and stuff down, and getting it ready for winter. But there's a lot to tear out. You want to come help? All right, I wanted to do this video because everybody shows you these perfect, pristine gardens with everything growing beautifully. That's not real life. This is real life. Sometimes it gets out of control and you have a mess on your hands. But you do what you got to do, and next spring you start all over again. So, I'm tired already and it just started. I got a volunteer working on the moonflowers and morning glories, and it is a beast of a plant. Yeah, that's quite a root on there. Quite a stalk. There you go. Having fun, dear? He's still at it, but I think he's taming the beast. That really is a huge plant. Well, a bunch of plants. But he's doing a good job. He's hired. Well, I had picked most of the beets earlier in the season, but I did have some golden beets left. They're so pretty and they are delicious. I love roasted beets. I also had to pick carrots. I kind of let the carrots go a little bit long. They were pretty big, but they were still really sweet and delicious. So we have a lot of carrots in the
I never
cellar
understood when you're supposed to pick carrots.
Well, probably before they get ginormous. And we got a million sweet potatoes. Oh my gosh.
Hundreds of pounds. I'm hungry for sweet potato fries.
Well, good. We're going to have some.
Okay, it's time to flip the compost piles, and fortunately the tractor does a great job, because if I had to do it with a shovel or a pitchfork, I'm not sure how often I would do it.
We couldn't. We couldn't do it without a tractor.
No, and then especially the way we do it, because we have 4 piles. We start one on the left side of the garden with all the fresh, and then a couple months over they move from one station to another.
So the one on the far right is the one that's ready to spread. And look
Yeah.
at that beautiful compost.
It's amazing that it happens. I never believe it, but there it is, the evidence.
Black gold. All right, now the gardens are pretty much weeded and ready to go. I like to put a layer of compost on all the garden beds before winter.
And again, the tractor saves a huge amount of time, so we don't have to shovel them into the wheelbarrow.
Yeah, and then I have somebody special that dumps them and sometimes even rakes
Yeah.
them out for me. I got a good thing going here.
Pays to have good wheelbarrows and somebody else that'll do the work.
It works very wonderfully.
Yeah.
But it makes such a difference on the beds to have compost on it for next spring. And then after I put the compost on, I like to mow grass and leaves together. And that's what I might use for my mulch, because it's perfect for putting on garden beds.
It seems funny to see you shaking out leaf bags into the grass.
But I do. We go around, pick up people's leaves, shake them on the grass, and then I mow them all together with the grass.
But that looks nice, doesn't it?
It tops the beds off, and they're covered for winter, and they're ready to go. And then next spring, that stuff's partly decomposed, ready to go. Then after the compost, it's time to put some wood chips in the pathways.
Yep, the tractor again does a great job, and sometimes I do it by loading it into the wheelbarrows, and sometimes I drive the tractor right in and do a direct dump right onto the beds.
If he can do it without damaging the beds very much.
Yeah.
He makes me nervous sometimes. But it looks so nice once you get the compost and mulch on the beds and the wood chips in the pathways. It's a nice, clean, neat garden ready for winter
But
and
you're
ready
right.
for spring.
It is important to keep the wood chips out of the growing
Yes,
beds.
they only go in the pathways.
Would you feel better now?
Yes, much better than I did, 4 or 5 weeks ago.
Oh, it was a nightmare. I mean, not only to have the weeds around, but everything needed to be harvested.
Yeah,
too.
we had to harvest all the sweet potatoes, the beets, and the carrots, and we had a million sweet potatoes.
Sure did. Yeah.
I think you're going to see a video in a couple weeks about all the ways you can use sweet potatoes.
And you started to feel better, and then you worked too hard, remember that?
I
And then
did.
you went downhill for a
Yeah,
little bit.
I kind of overdid it too soon, got sick again, so.
Yeah. But this is a reality video. Anybody that has a garden, something's going to happen one time or another, and it's going to get out of control, and that's what happened here.
And luckily, when you have help, my husband helped and my volunteer Prabha helped a lot this
definitely.
fall.
She was here a lot in the
yeah,
last
she
2
was.
weeks. Yeah.
She worked hard. So
Yeah.
between the 3 of us, we got her done.
Yeah. So what was the biggest success this year? What were you most happy?
Probably in here, sweet potatoes.
Okay.
I really didn't think we'd have that big of a crop, but
No.
I can give sweet potatoes to everybody in the world.
But in the tunnel, you had a lot of tomatoes.
In the tunnel, the tomatoes was the
Yeah.
big success. Yeah.
And that was good, especially since last year our tomatoes were not good at all.
No. Now this year in the garden, the regular potatoes didn't do well.
That's right.
I don't know why. And this year strawberries weren't a big success because we had just moved all the plants to different rows.
Yeah.
But now they're all established and beautiful. So next spring, I have 2 goals for next year. Get lots of strawberries and to get cantaloupe, because the cantaloupe died off early, had some disease. So
Yeah.
next year I want fresh cantaloupe. That's
And
my
you're
goal.
trying a few different things too. You've
Yeah.
got landscape fabric down, and
Yeah, that's one thing for next year. I'm going to try to make things a little bit more streamlined, a little bit easier.
yeah.
I'm not as young as I used to be. The doctor was right. So find a little bit easier ways to do things.
Yep. Well, hey, thanks for joining us today on the Wardenberg Family Farm.
We'll see you in our next video.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.